Is music mastered differently for each use? This is a good question, and one that we kind of answered in an Ohm's Law interview with a mastering engineer, Bernie Grundman. Bernie talked a lot about how the mastering of vinyl is so much different than the mastering for CDs and what he has to go through to do that. So in the broadest sense, when we compare digital to vinyl, the answer is yes. But let's get to the specific question, which comes to us from Kyle in Greencastle, Pennsylvania. In a previous video, you mentioned that music is mastered differently depending on the media type, vinyl or CD. It's done to accommodate that format's limitations, which we'll talk about in a sec. I'm curious if the same is true for many of the digital sources today. Is a track mastered differently for iTunes or a streaming service than it is for a CD or lossless download? And while you're at it, is it mastered differently for radio? Well, the long and short answer of it is no, it isn't. And when we spend the money to master something, it is basically done to fit the format that it's going to be in, the broad format, whether it be lossless audio, CD, digital, or vinyl. Now, having said that, a good mastering engineer, someone like our own Gus Guinness, who mastered our one SACD, which if you haven't picked it up, I highly recommend. We're almost out of them. It's an SACD of, if you want to know what good, well-recorded music sounds like and compare high resolution to CD quality or SACD, that's the one you ought to get. Go to psaudio.com, just click on products and go to music and you'll find it. In any case, there Gus does master is the wrong word. Mastering means essentially, especially if you listen to the Bernie Grundman interview, which I highly recommend, look it up on Ohm's Law. It's a really good insight into how mastering is done, what they're thinking about, what they're doing. But essentially, they are doing everything from little bits of EQ to changing volume levels on the fly to going in and using limiters or whatever they have to do to fit a recording into a specified space and to make sure that from track to track to track that they sound the same, as if they're even and get closer to what the musician actually wanted into that. It's a tough job. It's something that it takes a hell of a lot of skill and a big set of equipment to do. But I can tell you, when Gus mastered the one CD and SACD and digital, he mastered it all at once, so he got the best he could, and then he transcribed it through various programs that he has into the best 44.1, because everything started out at, I believe it was 176 it was all recorded at, on the, sorry, it was all done on the Sonoma system in DSD, which is, in my view, DSD can do no wrong. It is the best format to do recordings, unless you're going to do analog. And then analog, you're stuck with a tape recorder and you've got limited dynamic range and all that good stuff. So if you really want full range, beautifully recorded products, you do it in DSD. And Gus has one of the, I believe it is the only 32-track Sonoma DSD recording system in the world. And so it was originally recorded on that Sonoma 32-track recorder and then mixed at Immersive Studios on an analog deck. And then what Gus has to do is master that original DSD version. Once that's done, now he's going to take that DSD, and mastering's done. Now he's going to take it and he's going to change it over to, in this case, PCM. And I think, as I said, we did 176.24, but that's not mastering. That is the mastering engineer changing the format in the best possible means. And Gus has some very special programs that he finds to be as transparent as possible, as low loss as possible. Of course, it's not zero loss. You are going to lose. When you go from one format to another, it's going to be lost in translation a little bit. So depending on the skill of the mastering engineer, that is transferred over as best he can. From there, it's transferred down sampled to CD, which is 44:1:16. Now, Gus and I listened to both of them, and they are pretty damn close. Really good job. But that's not specifically mastering, though that is done by a mastering engineer. I hope that answered your question, but essentially mastering engineers will master for digital and they'll master for vinyl, and then from there they do all sorts of other things that aren't considered actually mastering to get them down to compressed format for iTunes, high resolution, uncompressed for other means. And we're not going to get into today the stupid levels of compression that they do for radio. That's a whole other thing. You'll have to ask me about that separately. That I will get off on a tirade about the ruination of oh God, the ruination of dynamics from people that don't have a love of music, they just have a love of loud. And damn your hides. Don't do that to music. Nothing gets my hair on the back of my neck up more than that. All right, I promised myself today I wouldn't go off on too many different tangents, and we'll try and keep these to a reasonable length. I think that was a great question. I appreciate you asking it, and let's talk tomorrow.